this service to the children, for instance, the health workers? What kind of systems are they working in? What kind of food timetable do they even have? And that being said, it means they need training. Yes. It means they need retraining. If they are already trained people, then they need refresher courses. And so we cannot just leave the people in the health sector out of the way when talking in the scheme of things. So we need system strengthening. The health workers, the volunteers, everybody who will be involved in executing this process have to be people who are at par with what is obtainable now. Because if you look at a place like Borno or Zamfara, they have a lot of cash crops. They have grains, they have rice, they have cassava. They have many things that are carbohydrates in nature. And you know what happens when you eat a lot of carbohydrate? It causes malnutrition. And so that balance isn't there. But when there is somebody who understands nutrition, a food nutritionist in that facility, let's say health center. Many health centers don't do. I mean, we are still talking about not having doctors, and we are talking about having nutritionists. So it could be a whole hassle. But think about having food nutritionists train the health workers to be offering these services to people and children in the community who are currently battling with malnutrition. That training needs to be there. That sustenance needs to be there. Okay, sustenance is another thing that I would like us to look at. But then, I don't know if Deborah wants to add anything before I move on to the next one.
You can move into sustenance. You said almost like everything. That's what we've been talking about since from the new segment.
Yeah.
This also opens door for job creation. We need more nutritionists. We need people to know what they are doing, to be taught how to do it. Not just because most of them, you might just find out that they are not really educated. They don't know what balanced diet is. They don't know what particular food will go, what particular food, and what should be or more should be focused more on. So of course, it opens, if they are nutritionists, it opens the door for job creation in that particular state.
I like that you said that, because the truth is, funds like this, it's an emergency fund, whether you like it or not. 600 million naira. It sounds very big on paper, but in reality, when you start the execution proper, you realize that, it's just another money that, just went off with the wind if we are not very careful. Emergency funds are good, but what is more important is sustenance, is the sustainability plan. What plans do we have in not just strengthening the healthcare system, in not just strengthening the food provision system? For instance, the school feeding program is a very huge one. It's something that I'm hoping is implemented. It was ongoing, and then I think in some places you experienced some sort of bottlenecks. But then there are some locations where, for instance, in Borno now, in Zamfara, in Benue, where we need to have this in practice. That means we need volunteers. We need a system that's sustainable. School feeding might sound good, especially for children. I mean, I know some kids who have benefited from this scheme. They're also excited to go to school to learn because they knew that they'd have breakfast and they'll have lunch. And it was so good because, you needed to see the food. It wasn't just white noodles, it was proper food. And there was like a timetable in that. It was a primary school, government school. But then I realized that it was an individual that was carrying out that project. It was an individual that was carrying out that feeding. She realized that was her school. From the testimony, that was her school. And so she just thought of a way to give back. Realizing how a lot of children go to school hungry, or a lot of children cannot afford to go to school because they barely have what to eat. Channeled it into, having a school feeding program. So I'm sure that if we have a school feeding program, that's not just a school feeding program, but it's very balanced, nutrition-wise, there's balanced diet. We have volunteers who are honest, because another thing that people have to deal with is the fact that there are too many hungry people in Nigeria. And when hungry people are in charge of, cooking food, or greedy people, they take the food. They divide the portion for the child. And so that's one of the kickbacks I have against school feeding program. What strategies are put in place to ensure proper monitoring? Now, if you say this household will have one bag of rice, truly that bag of rice gets to that family. That if we say we are going to follow through with this timetable for feeding, somebody will not will not sabotage the system by doing just whatever they want. So there's a problem, there's a gap of sustainability that must be filled if we want to eradicate malnutrition. Not just in those states, but in Nigeria, and of course any other place that malnutrition, is currently ongoing. Look at Congo, look at Sudan. All those African countries that are currently having fights, still undergoing war. They have many children suffering from malnutrition, and every day the data about them dying keeps rising. And if you're not very careful about, remember the palliatives now. What am I talking about? During the palliative season, I'm calling it a season because really it was a season, we realized that we had many warehouses, palliatives during the COVID-19.
Yeah.
A lot of donors sent in things to Africa, to Nigeria, and they had them locked up in some places. There was a stampede. There was such a stampede over food, over noodles, over a lot of things. People could just see how the wickedness that is in the heart of man. Man's wickedness to the fellow man. People were dying of hunger in your community, but foods were locked up in warehouses, got expired. I mean, I got a hold of some things that were actually expired. You saw spaghetti, you saw milk, they were all expired. So that means they did not even just get to the country that time. They had gotten their sins, but probably people were trying to siphon and find a way to either sell off or find a way to enrich their pocket or enrich certain people. And these are the things that when we are talking, malnutrition is a thing, but there are certain actions that we take that contribute to how this thing eats deep into us, hits deep into our health, and it affects every other sector of the economy. It's only a person who is well fed that can work. It's only a person who is not hungry at home that will see. You can say, I don't want to steal. But that is because you have that self-control. There are lots of people who go into stealing because they are hungry. There are lots of people who go into prostitution as ladies because they are hungry. They must feed their children. And then tomorrow when we want to come up with interventions, we are thinking interventions in, do not prostitute, do not steal. I am not saying any of these things is bad, but if we must tackle these issues, we must go to the root causes of them. Why are people acting the way they do? Why are people doing certain things? Because I feel like if you're not able to fix it up from down, you're only fixing the stem and nothing happens. When you cut off the stem, the root is still there. It will keep growing. So we must find a system that's very sustainable. That is one of the strategies that we can, work with to fill this gap of malnutrition. Deborah.
You've said it all. I've been hearing you, and I think I would keep saying it. We need to educate our people on this issue. It's a serious issue. We look at it as it's mild, but this causes a lot of, takes its toll on a lot of effects when it comes to the Nigerian child health care, and it's bad. I also think that they should educate parents also, because I think most of these parents might not even be aware of what nutrition means, what food are called food that are balanced, or diets that are balanced. It's not everybody that knows it. Let's just tell ourselves the truth. Today we eat rice, tomorrow it's not everybody that knows it. We should try to educate people to more, because if you're providing food, like you said, going to their state, trying to provide food, balanced nutrition of these foods, they can still misuse it. They can still decide, okay, let's keep beans. We know that beans can stay, or because we know that rice can stay, we'll start eating our beans today. Or we start eating our indomie today, or we start eating our gari today. We know that rice can stay, and maybe in one period of time when we finish exhausting our beans, we start eating our rice. When we exhaust our rice, we start moving into gari. So let's just make sure that we educate these people also. Apart from even giving them the food, let's educate them. Let them know that this is something serious. This is a serious case that needs to be tackled.
Okay. So I think we've looked at some of those very critical parts, but another thing that we want to, quickly talk about is that we must monitor and evaluate the process, and monitoring and evaluation cannot be overemphasized. For any project to be successful, there has to be close monitoring. There has to be constant monitoring and tracking what is happening, who is doing what, how is this executed, who is in charge of doing what. That way, you can be sure that, this project is going to either be a success or a failure. And of course, it's okay for projects to fail, but what happens is you take the lessons from them and do better next time. So if you realize that in this community, the approach is gather the people together, shout at them not shout at them, gather them together, speak with them, and people can queue in a line and get the food supply that you have for them, and it worked for them well. that approach may not work for another community. Another community will tell you, we need you to teach us how to farm. So you must ensure that whatever approach you're taking goes across or cuts across different communities and is something that works or tallies with what they want. If it doesn't tally, you're just beating a dead horse. Nothing is going to come out of it. So we must expand our approaches, and we must ensure that each approach is unique and aligns with whatever that community works with. So it's not just to come out with plans for nutrition. Oh, this is what I want to do about nutrition. This is what I want my government to do. I want to do this because so that when I come out for the next election, I can stand a chance. No. If you take it like a sole project of yours and understand that evaluation is key, and understand that you must track how these things are distributed. You sent out 1,000, let's say you sent out 1,000 bags of rice or bags of beans to a community, and somebody tells you that the bags of rice that got there were 980. You must find out what happened to the 20. You don't have to even do, you can put people, station people to track, monitor, and evaluate. When you track, you know what's happening with the project. When you evaluate, you know the results. When you, and then it just makes you understand where your impact is going, what you can do better moving forward. Because I think some of the mistake we do is just, oh, very grand idea, very grand innovation, let us kickstart with it. But there is no place for evaluation, there is no place for tracking the progress. So it's just like being everywhere at the same time, doing everything but doing nothing. And that is not the kind of approach that we want if we want to see an expanded growth. Another thing that we must also, look into is to integrate nutrition into broader development. And how can you do that? Food security, social security, all of these things are linked together. I give an example. It's a person who is feeding well. They can walk well. You don't expect somebody who is starving, who is hungry, to deliver or be productive. Of course, the person will be counterproductive. Whatever you're saying is like hitting a dead horse again. It doesn't matter what you do, you'll just be there. And if the person is even going to be responsive, it will be in the negative. Some things are from back home, some things are from the roots. And so if you're not able to tackle it from that point, you may not be able to do anything. So we've mentioned that you must be able to evaluate. We must ensure that whatever approach you are taking is sustainable. I think let's also talk about access. And access in this sense is talking about security. We still have communities, for instance, some of those communities in the north. It's not that there are no aids available, but the aids getting to the people. Because of the insecurity, because of insurgency, a lot of people are not able to access this aid. So this is where the government comes in and says, we must do something as a people. We must do something as a government to ensure that our people are not just hungry people. The insecurity that's stopping this from happening is treated, is fixed, is surmounted. That way, you can be sure that whatever intervention you're coming up with gets to the people who actually want it. Because what's the point of carrying out intervention when it's not yielding results? So we must be very intentional, we must be very deliberate, we must be ready to evaluate and take the course and take the bull by the horn at whatever point when it comes to malnutrition. Other than that, we're just not going anywhere. We're just doing too many things and announcing big money. Oh, 1 billion, 600 million, 50 billion, all of that. Headed nowhere.
You know, when you mentioned security, my mind went straight to how this food are being disbursed. Now, let's imagine a situation where you come and you want to give people food and you tell them to line up and there's a stampede.
Oh, yes.
Now you're trying to solve one particular problem and another problem is being caused on the on that line. And like you said, security also matters. How many people will even want to come out from their houses? If they come out today and something happens, you hear headsmen. Of course, they're looking for gatherings. It's this kind of gatherings they're looking for, where hungry people will gather so that anything can happen from it. Now, you hear headsmen coming to, what if it happens one day, what happens the second day? People won't want to come out.
Yeah.
No matter what you tell them, they want to see. It's better that, I really do not want to give the example. It's better I stay in my house and be eating my grains than come out and get better food to be able to add to that particular one I have. Or it's better I start in my house and know that, okay, I can be drinking water than come out. So we must look into all of this so that we do not create more problems for ourselves in the future trying to solve this particular malnutrition problem. Then we start creating problems like kidnapping issues or stampede issues, where you want to go and do out of the good of your heart, you want to go and give people food, and hear that another person is there's a stampede and someone died from that particular food sharing and all of that. It's actually very, very bad. So the government must actually look for a way to implement this in the proper format, making sure that also it gets to the people who need it. Like you said, if people are hungry and you give me 1 bag of rice, I remove 2 mudu from it, and it gets to the next person and the person removes 2 mudu too, and before it reaches the children who really need this food, we hear that you're sharing it 1 cup per child, and 1 cup does not even, it's as little as nothing, does not make any effect. And that's why you see that most of your gatherings actually do not make any effect, or most of your work or paperwork that we see, these are the reasons why they do not make any effect. We need accountability. We need that you look towards it fully. Try to monitor how the food is being disbursed. Know what pattern, like you said, to use for each and every state, to make sure that problems are not created out of the good you're trying to actually do. More problems are not created, because if problems are created, they will still fall back to the government to say the government did this. You see headlines saying that people died because the government were trying to. They will not even put the food parts. They will just say they will just record that people died out of. And it's not nice. So to look properly into that is actually very, very.
Thank you very much. I think that with that we can wrap up the Idea Morning Digest this morning. It was so good to have you join us on this very wonderful ride alongside my co-host today, Deborah Jacobs. I am Chinatu Oji, and I am inviting you to reach out to us across the different social media platforms. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. We're working on X, formerly Twitter. Yeah, so reach out to us. And if you'd like to be a guest on any of our programs, do well to send that email to ideatelevision@gmail.com. We can wait to have you join us on board. And of course, we're available to cover your events. You know, if something breaking, an innovation, something striking happens in your area, in your workplace, wherever it is within Africa, we're here to report it. So give us a call at ideatelevision@gmail.com or send us an email. We are always ready to respond. Until we come here next time, stay safe.